And so I walked down and said, hey, can I come make music with them? And these teachers will say yes in a heartbeat.
That's today's guest, orchestra teacher and 2024 Grammy music educator Annie Ray, on her unconventional approach to starting her inclusive crescendo orchestra program. Welcome to Music Ed Insights. I'm leadership trainer and former band director Alan Fire, here with composer and co-college music education program head Steve Shanley.
Each episode, Alan and I talk with national thought leaders in music education with practical insights for K-12 music educators.
Steve, tell us about our guest.
Annie Ray currently serves as the orchestra director and performing arts department chair at Annandale High School in Virginia. She is an advocate for providing universal access to quality music education and is known for founding and developing creative opportunities to make music accessible to students of all demographics. For these efforts, she was recently named the 2024 Grammy Music Educator Award recipient. Find Annie's full bio, show notes, and resources at musicedinsights.com. Alan, what was the takeaway you had from this episode?
I really loved the reminder that failure is okay, and that so much of our education system creates a fear of failure. What about you, Steve?
That cold open quote reminded me that previous guest, Alice Hamill, told us it's not enough to simply be welcoming of students with disabilities in our classrooms. We must go find them and recruit them to make music with us.
Yes, and a universal bit of advice for those of us who prepare for concerts. She said she had no business programming music that can't be prepared in our existing classroom time. Shout out to insider Matt Priest, who really wanted us to bring Annie on. If you want the benefits of being a Music Ed Insights insider, head to our website to learn more. For now, let's hear about the methods that won Annie Ray the Grammy.
Annie Ray, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, first of all, congratulations on receiving the prestigious Grammy Music Educator Award. You were honored for your efforts to make music accessible to all students, particularly those with disabilities. Can you please tell us about the Crescendo Orchestra? What is it? How did you come up with the idea? How has it evolved? What do we need to know?
Thank you so much for the kind words. It's been such a whirlwind and something I'm really processing, being honored along with the other finalists, the semifinalists and quarterfinalists, such incredible educators. And so that imposter syndrome is always there, but I think we all kind of deal with that there. Crescendo Orchestra is something that began back firmly established in 2020, but began actually back in 2018 when I had two twin brothers who were plopped into my general education strings class, and they both have significant or severe disabilities. And it was a moment when I was teaching where I felt like I was completely failing these boys, and they felt checked out, like they weren't engaged. And then I pulled them aside after class one day, and when I worked with them one-on-one, I realized that they knew everything that was going on. And so it became this mission of mine to better serve this population of students, and I worked with their mom really closely. And then COVID happened. I was still teaching from the school, and the students with significant and severe disabilities were brought back first. And I wandered down there, and I was really looking to connect with people. It's hard to teach to just black boxes on a screen. And I invited them down to my planning period, and we started making music together. And it was this moment of connection, especially with one student named Kevin, who inspired the whole program to be what it is, where he grabbed the cello and started bowing back and forth, and his eyes welled up with tears. So we kept on meeting during our planning period. I would go and watch their classes, and then working with the special education team, their occupational therapist, their physical therapist, their gym teacher, my mom, who's the general music teacher on the street, we developed what is now the Crescendo Orchestra program. We were kind of going back to a more normal year. I walked down to my principal and said, hey, what if this was its own class? Instead of me doing this during my planning time, what if we made this its own class? And it kind of developed from there. But to everyone who's listening, this is not a unique program to me. There's actually, I can't remember his name, but a Yamaha 40 under 40 band director who was just honored for something similar. But also there's programs like United Sound out there, which is a great way, kind of best buddies style or Special Olympics style, to get a program like this started in their own program. Or you can look at things like Giving Bach, BACH, and give it a try yourself.
That's great. That was going to be my next question, which is, can we recreate some of your concepts in a band or a choir or maybe even a general music classroom? It sounds like there isn't a lot of it that is very, very, very specific to string playing. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. Crescendo has been like the most freeing thing for me as an educator because we're really trained as educators to be like very classically trained. Like we're working towards this end goal, this perfectionism, this process. There's this way we do things. But with Crescendo, it's been so freeing for me because there is no correct formulaic way for us to do something. And it's all about process and trial and error and celebrating those. So if you don't have a whole class period that you get to dedicate to these students because of your schedule or funding, looking at things like United Sound is a great way to start it. And every year it changes. So I rewrite the curriculum every year for who's sitting in front of me. And it's been something that's impacted not just those students, but has changed everything about the way I teach my general education students as well.
So let's dig into the process here. As you dig into this, you expected what?
I don't really think I had an expectation. I think 2020 was such this unique time of there was no expectation. As I was going through, I was like, what if I fail? And then I realized it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter for any of us to fail. Like, it doesn't matter for any of us to fail, even when we're doing process. And for us, especially in the American education system, it's scary to fail. And that's something that I have really been going through about what we redefine success as in education in general, of what it means to meet someone where they're at and then bring them along further than they could ever expect to. And that entire educational philosophy is so embodied by my Crescendo program because people sadly don't have expectations for these students when they have so much to learn from them. And it's just that human connection, that act of making music being the universal language and it being so different for each of us. And so when we have like our method book that we're going through, instead of this prescribed manner of doing it, Jemmy over there might not be processing it the same way that Samantha might be over there. And how do we change it that meets every kind of learner where they're at, whether they're in a crescendo-like program or are advanced ensembles or anywhere?
Alan and I are both former high school band directors. And as we started on this podcast a few years ago, just continue to be amazed at the elementary general music teachers and how they are so focused on process. And they seem to be doing, from what we can tell, some of the best music educating. And one of our theories for this is not that, well, people who care more about teaching music tend to end up working with the younger students. It's this expectation in the secondary level that you're going to go perform these concerts or go to these festivals, and how good it sounds or what your festival rating is, that's going to determine how good of a teacher we think you are. And that maybe in the younger grades or the general music settings, there isn't that same pressure. So they are freed up to think, you know what, today we're going to spend this time on some composition stuff. And it's okay if we don't polish this or that, because that isn't what we're worried about. And so I'm wondering for you, as you were able to compartmentalize your job in a way that, well, yes, I still have this orchestra. They're expected to do well. But then I also have this part of my day where I get to just focus on this. If that might be a reason that other high school and middle school teachers who have ensembles as their primary responsibility would say, why should I add this to my plate? And this sounds like one of the answers. This is why you add this extra thing to your plate, because it's a built-in way for you to just worry about the process. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's exactly true. But also it can be kind of a yes and with it too. Like, this isn't to sound like put my groups on a pedestal or anything, but we consistently get like 1 ratings. And the reason for that is not because I'm programming the most hard things that are out there. And if I can't teach it in the classroom time and would have to call these sectionals after school, whatever, I shouldn't be teaching it. So what does it mean to meet my program where they're at? Where does it mean to meet my community where they're at? And that's not to program the most difficult, challenging music out there. That's to make them get to experience for the first time what it means to polish a piece and to feel that emotion, to breathe together, create a musical phrase and say something instead of worrying about what's happening in the left hand, the technicalities of it. They get to experience and take that with them for the rest of their lives, because they're not going to know that they went and played grade 6 rep, but they are going to know what it feels like to be successful on the stage. So it doesn't have to be one or the other. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I'm not going to worry about the end result on it. I'm only going to worry about the process. It can be both and celebratory of both. But it's one of those things where we have to stop comparing ourselves to our program that's down the street and what they're doing. The students' backgrounds and communities are completely different. Where the students are coming from is completely different. What's happening around the rest of the school is completely different for them. That's why I challenge teachers to do is to meet your students where they're at, take them further along than they ever could imagine to this polished perfection. And that's the greatest thing about crescendo. And it is the argument of like why you should do that. But also like these crescendo students, they are able to play together. They are able to make a piece happen. And they know when they've done it right and celebrate it. They know, they feel it just the same way that everyone else does. And they have the right to feel that. So they have the right not to just experience, but also to experience what it means to refine something and to perform something.
So let's dig into the nuts and bolts of this. I imagine prior to starting this, you weren't exactly sitting around for 2 periods a day wondering, what should I do to fill my time? So I'm guessing something had to go away in order for this to happen, or you had to move it outside the school day. So first, scheduling. Were there some challenges with that, and how did you overcome that?
The thing with that is that everyone's scheduling thing is going to be unique to them. You don't have to give up planning. I gave up planning during COVID because this was keeping me sane. But for a lot of people, it might have to start as an after school thing where you dip your toe in kind of best buddy Special Olympic style through United Sound, this incredible program. And then it can grow to be something else. People often think that the funding has to come directly from the school district when it doesn't. I've written so many grants. I've reached out to organizations being like, I want to do this. I don't have instruments. Can you help me? And Instruments in the Attic stepped in and gave us instruments that could be chucked around the room a little bit, need be, for me to create these. And it doesn't have to be a bubble. The communities want things like this. The communities are looking for the good in this. So reach out into the communities and be the megaphone for your program and give them what they need.
And let's back up for just a second. You talked about the way that you approach your administrator. I don't want to gloss over that much. I think that so often we go to administrators, teachers go to administrators asking for something, or sometimes like almost complaining about something, or you're talking about how their circumstances fall short. It sounds like you went to your administrator and said, here's a thing that I want to do, and I've come up with the resources for it. Is that a fair way to summarize that?
Yes, 100%. And that's what my principal actually said to me the other day.
Yeah, this is not a small thing. Like, this is something that all educators of any stripe, anybody who teaches anything, could learn about how to be effective with their administrators is to go to them with a solution that you've developed with some proactivity. And I know a lot of people are very busy and the circumstances can be tough, and maybe not everybody has the chance to do that, but any chance you can create to do that is a good move. So I love that part of the story. I want to lift that up.
Yeah, reaching out into the community and doing those things. And they have so many issues that they have to like face that to come up with an answer for it, it's almost impossible, especially let alone a subject they don't really understand most of the time.
So I have to imagine there have been a lot of positives to come out of this and some things that we would probably expect that would be positive. Were there any unexpected positives that came as a result of forming and teaching the Crescendo Orchestra?
The thing that came from it was it really reshaped my entire educational approach, which is like something that like a lot of people have really grasped onto the Grammy win coming from Crescendo Orchestra, when the reality is that it's actually about meeting every student where they're at. So my Annandale population, we have over 60 countries represented. We have 59 different languages. 81% of our kids speak a different language than English other than home. And over 70% of our students are on free or reduced lunch, meaning they're below that poverty line. And in a world right now where there's a lot of really negative things happening and you hear going on in the world, a lot of these communities would probably not like each other very much. But in the music classroom, they're all laughing together and they're celebrating together, and it's process and music, the process of making music being that universal language and them coming together.
Sounds like perhaps next President Biden might invite you to the White House and ask how to solve the Middle East conflict right now. You just give the Israelis and Palestinians all violins, and Annie will get them working together in harmony, maybe.
I don't know if I'm the person to bite off that one.
What advice do you have for music teachers who either maybe want to replicate the Crescendo Orchestra idea in their programs, or they just maybe tomorrow would like to do a better job of making music accessible to students with disabilities in their school?
Don't be afraid of it. Let go of your fear and your expectation for yourself and allow yourself to be taught through the process. It's one thing to include a student in orchestra of the community part, but it's another to give them the gift of the knowledge of it. United Sound is such an excellent starting point. But I'm an open book too. People can reach out to me, but there's an organization called stringrise.org that I am associated with, where we're working with educating whole school districts on why these programs should exist and why they matter, but also about working with students and processing trauma, and how a lot of our about how music really fundamentally does that and can be an escape for students. Just let go of the fear. Just do it. Like, the worst thing that happens is it doesn't work right away, and you regroup and you try again.
One of our previous guests, Alice Hamill, basically said the exact same thing. You need to not be scared, and you need to go get them. It's not enough to just simply be accepting. You need to go into the special
Yes.
education classrooms and figure out. So did you do that? Did you tell the teachers, hey, I'd like to come in and talk about how awesome music is, to recruit some students? Because now I'm sure everybody knows this is a great thing and we want to be a part of it. But during the initial stages, you had to get the word out.
Annandale has like one of the largest special education departments in the state. And so I walked down and said, hey, can I come make music with them? And these teachers will say yes in a heartbeat. And the occupational therapist and my instructional assistants, they are so fundamental to the development of this program. I literally just took general education, music education curriculum, their special education curriculum, so it looked the same, and combined the two. And that's all you have to do, is go down and ask, and get out of your bubble, get out of your classroom and walk the school and make relationships and get to know people and be the face of that. That's all it takes. But to say that, that's the same for recruitment and retention in our own programs. So since I came in 2020, we've grown the program from about 65 students to, like I said, over 140. And it's not waiting for them to come up from the middle school. I literally will go and track kids down in the hallway and be like, hey, I heard you singing, like, or doing all this other thing. Like, I would love to have you in my music classroom. Do you want to come down during lunch and play? And the next thing I know, they're in the classroom. You can recruit from your own school as well, but you have to go and make those relationships. And all it takes is saying, hi, my name is Miss Ray. What's your name? I hear that you like music. I would love music too. Would you like to come and see? And bringing those people in. So it's the same way that you would do for any students.
So Alan and I are already feeling bad enough about ourselves that we did not start a crescendo band when we were teaching high school band.
Correct.
And then we find out that you also started a parent orchestra. Alan and I also never started a parent band. So go ahead, dunk on us. Tell us about this other super cool thing that you did that Alan and I never thought about.
Well, the credit actually has to go to my mentor, Brian Coatney, and I'm so honored that I get to present alongside him at the upcoming Midwest Band and Orchestra Clinic, where we're combining our two ensembles. But yeah, the parent orchestra is designed to kind of bridge this gap of parents not really knowing what we're doing in our classroom. And it was inspired because I saw a parent post on Facebook about how they were mad about Jimmy bringing home the violin and wanting to put in earplugs. And I was like, wow, how demotivating is that? Like, that kid's going to drop in like 2 months. Because that parent is already being like, you're not good at this, even before you began. And so it started off with about 20 parents in 2018. And now we have over 200 caregivers annually who learn their child's instrument with a 100-person plus wait list. We have 4 different ensembles, from people who have never touched a musical instrument in their life to those who have been with me since 2018 or are revisiting from high school. The idea comes from the Suzuki parent-child relationship. And it's grown to being so much more than that. As a bunch of my parents have said, this is the one thing I do for myself each week. And my army of bass players go out for drinks after rehearsal, every rehearsal. But more than that, like, how cool is it now that your child gets to be the expert? And again, the device is put away and they're processing and they're learning. And also, how cool is it to watch a parent be bad at something right away and know that, like, it's okay to be really bad at something and learn. And going through that process, and the parent is modeling process. It takes a lot of bravery as an adult from that, but it grew even beyond that. Now we have all of our teachers teaching, a bunch of our teachers teaching. And when we're typically singletons in our classroom, now we're watching each other teach. So it's become professional development where we're like, that's a genius idea. I'm going to steal that from my class. And then it's become this recruitment tool for future music educators. So we bring in pre-student teaching teachers to come and have classroom experience without the classroom management portion. And then we have high school students who come and teach and are like, wow, this is really fun. Like, I would love to do this. And now as a result, I have more than 6 students who are graduating and now doing music in some capacity in their career, going off to music school. So it's become this much bigger thing than let's just go learn how to play the violin. It's, hey, let's go and be human together and let's grow about like why our music programs matter.
So when talking about the parent orchestra, you also use the term caregivers. Is the name of the group the parent orchestra? And then you are, after that, sort of careful with your language to say caregivers, so it's welcoming to all. Can you talk just a little bit about that?
I mean, it's a growing and learning process that we all have, right? So in 2018, I just labeled it parent orchestra and I called it a day. And then as I've been going through and learning and being taught by my students and being welcomed into their homes, like when I was pregnant with my second baby, I had a parent who would send traditional Korean food to school every week for me to make sure I was being fed and going through this and being like, no, it's caregiver is the word that I should use because there's people whose aunts are their parent figure. There's foster parents, all of those things. Everyone knows it as parent orchestra. We also have teachers who come and learn like all around the schools and pop in administrators who are learning. So I turned it from parent orchestra to when I refer to everyone as caregivers, but I use the word parent more for a generality so people have a starting point. And then I really specify it's caregivers. Everybody is invited.
Awesome. Okay. Tell us about the award, finding out how you were nominated, attending the ceremony in Los Angeles. Let's hear some of the good stories.
Yeah, I mean, that nomination means more to me, and the video also that my students helped put together means more to me than the award itself, and a multitude of reasons. Like to have your colleagues speak so highly of you. I knew I was a finalist, and they called me and were like, "Hey, you're the winner." And at the time, my daughters were both having a meltdown at the same time that this was happening.
How old are your daughters at the moment?
Right now, I have a 2.5-year-old and an 8-month-old. So
Okay.
I'm in the trenches right now, and they're both having this utter meltdown. They're like, "Your daughters sound so excited for you." I'm like, "Yep." And then I went back and I hung up the phone, and I was going back to just like helping mend this meltdown that's happening. And in my head, I'm like, did I just win a Grammy? Like, what just happened? But I was asked to keep it a secret, so I kept it secret for over a month. And then they announced it on CBS, where my students all found out at the same time, which at a watch party my school put together. But they were like, "Wouldn't that be so awkward if you don't win, Miss Ray?" And I'm like, "Oh, I mean, we'll see what happens. We can all rise and fall together as a team." But next thing I knew, I taught one more class, and then I was on the plane with my husband, and it was our first time leaving either one of our daughters with my parents who flew in, and
Like within hours, like that
yeah,
fast?
yes,
Oh, wow.
yes. And next thing I know, I'm going through the whole Grammy experience, which wow, they made me feel so celebrated and special. And these celebrities I got to meet were incredible. Like, I mean, there's the iconic picture going around of Taylor Swift throwing her arms around me. I didn't get to speak very much to her because it was during a commercial break, but I did get to speak with some length to Meryl Streep, who told me that a music educator changed her life and is why the way
Wow.
she is today. And Oprah spoke with me, and Billie Eilish and SZA, and I had a great conversation. And Victoria Monet, who won Best New Artist as a 2.5-year-old. So we were backstage being like, "Girl, what are we doing with these 2.5-year-olds?" And so it was just a very humanizing moment to be like, we're here together. And my musical idol right now, Jacob Collier, I really admire his work. Made a personalized message for me, video message for me, and I got to meet him in person. But even more so than that, when I got to give my award speech and I got to thank my students publicly and tell the world about what Annandale is, to have people like Ice Cube stand up and applaud you,
Wow.
it was a moment where I was like, the world needs to know about these kids, about what music is doing. And it was kind of this incredible juxtaposition where I gave my speech, and then at the very end, they awarded the last award, which for special merits, which is the Song for Social Change. And I don't want to say his name incorrectly and butcher it, but the winner wrote this song called Refugee. And he has no idea the way that really bookended what is the story of many of my students. And he said the word for home in his language is very similar and derives from the word mother, which is everyone's first home. And so he dedicated the award to his first home, to his mother. And that really hit home as someone who was really processing how motherhood has been my greatest teacher and also taught me so much about being a teacher. In a world right now where it's very difficult to be a mother and be a music educator, how it can be, again, a yes, and it doesn't have to be a this or that, or you have to give it up. You can do both. And that's another thing that I'm starting to really work on. And I'm advocating for is program my friend and I are putting together, Alexander Blaine, called Motherhood and Music Education, where we're hoping to create a space where our careers can be more sustainable if we just all come together.
Wow. Great stories. And the Jacob Collier thing, did the message include any singing? Was there any vocalized
Was there any like polyrhythms he was throwing together?
Yeah, yeah. I was just wondering if it was like his trademark
Uh,
stuff.
No, he just said such kind words to me about like how he was inspired by my story and like thank you for being in the world and contributing to it. And
Wow.
it meant a lot. And he was great in person too, but his music has really hit in a time where I've been doing a lot of processing and a lot of what he's come out with has really spoken to things going on in my life. And so it was incredible to meet him.
Well, thank you for spending time in our world. It is a pleasure and a joy for Steve and I to visit with you and for our listeners to learn and hear from you. But we always like to set aside a few minutes for a lightning round with some lighter questions. Are you up for that?
Yes.
All right, here we go. A favorite restaurant in the Washington, D.C. area?
I really love this place called Torta y Taco La Chiquita, which is off of Columbia Pike. And it's not in DC, it's right outside of DC. They're fantastic, great taqueria. And then also Bangkok 54, which is a great Thai place.
A piece of music, composer, or performer that you wish more people knew about?
I have two answers for this. One is an artist named Fulton Lee, who I just got to see. He's a smaller artist who just finished his first tour. Incredible storyteller. His thing is like called Bubblegum Funk. People should look it up. It's incredible. And then also a guy named Christels Bacon, who came and worked with my students after I won the Wolf Trap grant. And he does this incredible mixing of cultures and music with hip hop and beatboxing, which really embodies my entire program. So the fact that we got to work with him and him be our artist in residence for a year was incredible. So both are great.
A favorite TV series you've enjoyed recently?
I have two. One, my husband and I are big into Survivor. My dream is for him to be on the show, not me, him. But our biggest dream, and it's in my bio because I feel so passionate about this, I want to go run and win the amazing race. And so my husband and I, on Wednesday nights, that's where you're going to find us. We put the girls to bed early, and there we are, just powering through both series.
The most memorable live music performance you've attended?
Again, two. One was when I met my husband. We were both called as substitutes to the same gig. So that one was very memorable for me. But to go see in person, again, I have to mention Fulton Lee just because it's right there and seeing him. And he is a father also of two girls. They were very similar in age, and parenthood is hard, and his just beautiful way of putting it really connected and resonates with my husband and I. And he puts on a great show. So shout out to Fulton Lee.
A book recommendation for our listeners and bonus points if it has nothing to do with music.
How to Keep House When You Are Drowning is the name of the book. And it's not actually about all how to keep your house together. There are tips and tricks, but it's these like chapters that are like 1.5 pages where you feel great about reading them. And it's so normalizing a parent's struggles and how to just keep on moving, and how and the reason I really love it is it's freeing of society expectations. Like, you don't need to match all the socks, just buy all white socks, throw them into a bag. Ta-da, you have a sock bag. It worked. So as someone who's a perfectionist, that book has been amazing for me.
Very cool. Annie Ray, it's been an honor and a privilege to have you on our podcast. Please keep doing what you're doing for all students, and we'll keep listening to what you have to say. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Music Ed Insights.
We're supported by Group Dynamic, a leading provider of youth leadership workshops. Alan works with dozens of schools each year to help develop their leaders. Learn more at groupdynamic.net/youth-leadership.
Or you could email me at alan@groupdynamic.net. Also sponsored by the Co-College Music Education Program. They've got a website too.
Just click their link at our website or email me at sshanley@coe.edu.
Also, The Normal Design, helping normal companies and people create memorable, meaningful, and professional designs and branding. More at thenormaldesign.com.
And Winterset Websites, website design and maintenance. wintersetwebsites.com.
Our Facebook page is Music Ed Insights.
Our website has program notes, links, and a one-page download of this episode's key takeaways. That's musicedinsights.com.
New episodes generally drop every couple weeks on Monday.
Get current.
Stay relevant.
Music Ed Insights.